The more you try to sell, the less you will sell.
You're listening to the BulkLoads podcast, your number one resource for everything bulk freight trucking. And this is episode 240.
Hey guys, Jared Flynn with the BulkLoads podcast. Got Tyler with me.
What's going on?
Man, we're going to talk about selling again.
Ooh,
And
I like this subject.
Yeah, well, for some of those that were at the Bulk Freight Conference, we had a speaker that talked about selling. I think I'm just super passionate about selling because I know how valuable it is.
Yeah.
And not just to salesmen, but to anybody in business. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're the driver, the dispatcher, the freight broker, the receiver, dock handler. I mean, you name it, you have to be selling.
Yep.
And man, I don't want you to turn this off because like there is some valuable stuff in here. Today I'm going to bring on Sinjin Kramer, which is interesting. His actually name, it's spelled ST and then space John. I was saying St. John, but it's Sinjin Kramer. He was referred to us, and sometimes I'm a little leery on people that actually get referred to us to be on the show because sometimes it's just to promote their platform.
Right.
But talk to Sinjin, and man, we had a great conversation. And I said, man, you have some gold nuggets that we need to give to our audience here. Sinjin, he is actually in New Zealand. So when we recorded this, I think it's a day ahead of us. He's like 16 hours ahead.
Wow.
So we were recording in the afternoon, and it was at next morning, I think around 10 or 11 a.m. When we were recording. But he has a platform company called Agrarian where they do coaching and sales training specifically to ag professionals, whether it's seed dealers, merchandisers, grain equipment, feed, fertilizer, all that. So this guy knows what he's talking about. And what's interesting, Tyler, it doesn't matter where in the world you are, selling is selling to people.
That's true. Yeah.
And, today, and after talking to him, it's like, man, you guys are selling just like we're selling over here. And, the way the ag system is and all that. So a lot of this is just so relevant to what we do here.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, I mean, everyone is selling something. And at the conference too, we did have a speaker on that. And I know the guys in here, they got a lot, just internally at BulkLoads, they got a lot from Greg Martinelli whenever he was talking on it.
Yep. So I want you to lean into this show and really listen. There are some really gold nuggets here. Again, even if you're a driver and you have to be selling your platform or business to get more business. And I think that's what he's going to really hit on here. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be a salesman to be selling. We are all selling. And I'm going to give away the secret here. But when we talk about selling, it's really not about selling. And I'm going to leave it at that. So with that said, here is my conversation with Sinjin Kramer of Agrarian. Sinjin, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks for having me.
Well, full disclosure, I have to let our audience know I make a lot of mistakes in life, and I learn from the mistakes. This is actually our second recording, and obviously our listeners didn't listen to the first one, but you were gracious to come back on. We had some technical things. We bounced around a little bit. You sent a message to me, Sinjin, saying, hey, if you want to redo this, let me know. And then after I went through it, I'm like, I think we can do better. Yeah. So, but I am excited to have you on, or back on, I should say. This one, there's certain topics I get pretty lit up on, but this is one I really light up on just because I'm a sales guy. And I think that's where we kind of got in the weeds a little bit. we kind of nerded out a little bit and not kind of focused. So this is a re-recording, but we're going to get some extreme focus and some really good takeaways on talking about sales, but more importantly, how our users and listeners can benefit from this. This specifically the grain haulers, small owner operators, because again, most of you all don't think of yourself as salesmen, but you are. And that's what we're really going to talk about. So, Sinjin, thanks for coming on.
It's great, mate. And here from sunny New Zealand over to you in Missouri. It was a little bit wetter and a little bit colder, but like I said, we just had one of our largest cities had about half their annual rainfall in 1 hour, which flooded our international airport. So yeah, it's these weather events are a thing.
Yeah, for sure. Just to give our audience a little bit of credibility, you got a great story. I've heard this once, so I'm going to hear it again. But talk about your background and then what came to the founding Agrarian, because that's a really good story.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. So basic guys and girls, I'm based in New Zealand, English by birth, as you can tell by my accent, which is pretty hard because my rugby team's pretty bad and the All Blacks are very, very good. So always popular down here, down under. I come a farm in the UK, in rural Essex, and my father was involved in agriculture and, funny enough, traded grain and wheat and durum wheat and oilseed rape and stuff like that. And he was an agricultural merchant and involved with Dow Geddes, for some people that might know. And we had a farm as well. And I've been very fortunate later in life to come back full loop, back to rural, back to my roots. And obviously in Australia and New Zealand, which are both markets that I serve down under here, we are very agrarian-based economies, very, very agricultural-based economies. We kind of export about 90 or 95% of all our primary produce, our food and fiber. And I've always been interested I was a marketer and worked in big global network agencies like McCann Erickson and Young and Rubicon, on my clearinghouse and the IPA leagues in London. I beat 50 people to my place at the first university degree kind of its course in the UK. So always had a lot of competition, which I kind of thrive on. And went through marketing, advertising, brand kind of things, worked for the big agencies, worked for some big corporates as a marketing manager and brand manager, and kind of looped into sales, and business development, and did an okay job, did a fairly good job, got some big clients, the John Deeres, the Vodafones, the Bayers, the Delavals, the True Tests, some big aggy names. And then started out on my own because the company I was with, very grateful, but I wasn't learning anything more. And I've always been a lifelong learner. And they always say, I can't remember which clever fella or lady said it, but principle is only a principle when it costs you money. So I left a very, very high paying job to start my own business called Agrarian. It's not aquarium, as some of my family like to believe, because agrarian is obviously the advancement of agricultural interests. It's an agrarian society. So set it up 6 years ago, going well. Half the business is in Australia now, run it from New Zealand, jump across the Tassie, or the ditch, as we colloquially call it. Ditch is about 3 hours long on a plane. Everyone, you know how rural it is. Everyone goes, sticks, posts, paddock, everything's missed and very humble, very much down here. And absolutely love the sector. Really proud to serve my people again and set the business up, because I see a lot of rural business owners and Jared, your loyal listeners, really struggle with the stigma of sales and the label of sales. So I've worked very, very hard to create systems and strategies and tools and techniques, programs and training to help them kind of get over themselves or get themselves out of their own way and succeed in sales, because it's something that doesn't really come very naturally to rural folk. And that's probably where we should open up.
Yeah. And I'd like to hear your feedback on this, but I've almost said it's been a disservice for rural folk not knowing sales, or a disadvantage to them when you're talking about bigger companies. I'm just using an example, maybe grain companies or seed companies, fertilizer companies having maybe an advantage over rural America because they're not trained or trained well on sales. What would be your responses to that?
Yeah, great question to start with. So with those bigger corporates, there are pluses and minuses to it in terms of how they train their teams. I mean, I think as a business owner myself, I'm a small business owner, very small team, very lean and mean team. Sales is the lifeblood of any rural business. And whether you like it or not, you've got to understand the basic principles of sales. Now, you had your great guy, Greg Marcellini, on. He dropped some really good stuff on there as well. And obviously, I'm not in the States, and he's going to come to your conference. It's awesome. It's great you're exposing your listeners to people like that, because really, sales are the lifeblood. The reason most businesses fail is because they don't make enough sales, because they don't generate enough leads. Now, sales as a concept kicks up a lot of connotations, not usually good ones, like fast-rubbing salespeople, self-service. What's this bugger here to sell me now? Are they selling me things I don't want? And we kind of have a very uneasy relationship with that label of sales. So the first thing we need to do is work on psychology of self. And I'm going to talk a lot about psychology in this show for your listeners, Jared. because sales success starts with yourself and getting your head straight in the game. Now, let's use an analogy here. High-performing sports teams, whether it's baseball, NBA, rugby, cricket, tennis, everything else, they all have physical parity. What defines them and differentiates them at the top of the league, as much in sales, is the mental parity, their mental edge, their psychology, and the relationship they have with their own brain and then the brain of their buyer. So on that, what we do is we inherit a lot of sales teams or small business, rural business owners. They might be doing 1 to 5 mil, 5 to 10, whatever it happens to be, just revenue, top line, not profit. And we talk about price and psychology if we get time, or we talk about it on another show. And the first thing is I say to them, let's get comfortable with our relationship with sales. Now, the best way to do that is, here's the thing. The problem with sales is selling. If I said nothing else in this whole episode to add value to your listeners, the problem with sales is selling. Let me justify that and unpack that a bit more. The more you try to sell, the less you will sell. The antidote, the complete opposite, the inversion, Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett style, is to serve to sell. So what we do is, when we serve the best interests of our ideal client, and we can maybe talk about that as well, when we serve the best interests of our prospect or our ideal client, rather than serving the best interests of ourselves as traditional self-serving salespeople, we'll make more sales. So this is just like psychology 101. Like, the problem with sales is selling. The more you sell, the less you will sell. What you need to do is stop selling and start supporting your customers to make accurate and informed decisions. You need to become a student in human psychology and decision making. And if you will find it, if this is interesting for you, you will find it fascinating, because you'll learn as much about yourself as you will about other human behavior.
It made me think of just today, I had a board meeting with a bank that I'm a board member on. And the bank, they asked us almost exact question. They're like, hey, how do we find more customers? How do we build better relationships and all that? And there was 2 things that came out. One was trust, but the second, it just made me think of this. It was like, don't try to sell people. That's the problem. Like, and where we are specifically, there's a lot of banks in this area, a lot of banks competing for business. But I just stood up. I said, like, I think you got to stop. Don't think about selling people on your product. Think about serving them with your product.
100%. Couldn't agree more. And then the thing is, if for your rural business owners, your grain haulers and your truckies and the one-man bands, or the husband and wife teams, and wife's doing all logistics and the billing and the guys running and driving, is we need to understand that, sales is a very, very big component of that. And you've got to get your head around it. We've got a mental block to sales. But the thing is, the way we can relieve that mental block is to say, we're going to stop selling and we're going to start serving.
Well, I don't want to cut you off there, because I want to go back to the stigma that you have on sales, because I think, I could be wrong, but most of our owner operators and truck drivers, they don't refer to themselves as salesmen. And I don't think a lot of our clients think of themselves as salesmen. They think of themselves as owner operators, business, truck drivers and all that. But you're saying they're salesmen.
Well, I'm saying that everyone has to be a salesman, whether you like the word or not. At the end of the day, you're really good at your finances and the businesses that you run, Jared, and the podcast that you run, is you're looking at what is your sales revenue? How are you generating leads? What's your pipeline? What's the propensity scoring of that pipeline? How many have you got come through? What's your conversion rate? What's the cost per sale? These basic dials on your dashboard, or KPIs, for a good, well-run, profitable business. We have to be selling, but we can remove the word selling and talk about serving. A serving thing could be very simply, I have a stock agent here in New Zealand, a stock agent, livestock agent.
Yep.
He was up, and I know this sounds very cocky, I'm not meaning to, but he's on camera, he proves it. I got him to do just one thing, which was to start weekly emailing his list with the cattle and the livestock he had available and what he was looking for and what the schedule price was doing, what the meat works and the meat processors and meat packers were doing. And he doubled his sales in 6 weeks. in terms of livestock trading, just by simply sending them a text, not a fancy MailChimp imagery. Don't worry about that. Just send a really good serving email out on text. And he was up 200% in 6 weeks, and he couldn't believe it. And he's never looked back.
Wow. Well, I want to dive a little bit more, and we got a lot to cover here because I want to get into practical examples specifically for our audience.
Awesome.
You know who our audience is, and I think that's where I want these guys to pull some really golden nuggets out of that. But again, just to segue into that, most of our guys got to get over that sales is a negative thing, but sales is serving.
Yeah, sales is serving. If we really good place to start, Jared. If we're really concerned around sales as a concept and how it makes us feel, and that yucky, horrible, oh, I don't want to be a salesperson, because everyone uses business development and territory managers and client success officers and everything else. At the end of the day, if you don't want skinny kids, you need to learn how to sell. Now, I know some of the best salespeople here in Australia and New Zealand. I have, and I'll use livestock agents as an example. We can talk about feed and fert reps and studs and genetics and everything else. Some of my guys that I train as livestock agents make $800,000 a year.
Oh my gosh.
That's Australian or New Zealand dollars. So that would equate to about 500. That's $500,000 US.
Okay.
That's take home. That's take home money. Now, these guys are exceptional at the top of the game, but they know how to sell. So if you want to make money, you've got to learn how to sell. But we don't sell, we serve. Now, the reason is because our farmers, let's get into the farming psyche here, and our grain traders and the people that we're buying and selling to, they are very immune, almost allergic to sales. They have been burnt and bruised by some really, really crappy sales experiences and crappy salespeople. Now, whether you define yourself as a salesperson or a business owner, I bet if we ask every one of your listeners, would you like to make more money? The answer is going to be yes. So they're going to put their hand up and say, yes, Sinjin, Jared, I'd love to learn how to make more money. So you have got fantastic resources. You've had wonderful guests on here, lots of different ways we can do that. Coaching, leadership, culture, profit, financial management, procurement, all those sort of things, cost, inventory, productivity, time management. I'm going to focus on sales. And I would say that sales are probably the most important thing you need to do because they're the biggest determinant of company revenue. If you don't make sales, you are not going to make enough money. So what we do is we have to be really, really good with our farming clients and serve them by signaling safety. Now, the way that we do this from a psychological point of view for your listeners is we say to them, we might ask them a simple question like, hey, before I rattle on, and you're meeting them for a coffee in the diner or whatever, or you're having a phone call or a Zoom or Teams, whatever you're doing with them, even at super cash, look, before I blurb on, how would you like to best use the 50 minutes that we've got together? What would you like to know about us the most? Now, you see, I haven't done a verbal vomit, show and tell, just dump everything on here and show my technical prowess and show how clever I am. I've gone straight away. I want to serve you. I don't know whether we can help you or not. I've got a few questions to qualify if we can. Can you tell me a bit about the business? And more importantly, tell me the experience you've had working with similar businesses like us.
Well, one thing you
Good.
mentioned, it was embedded in my brain. You said the thing you don't want to ask is, what are your biggest problems?
Oh, yeah. We talked about this.
Yeah. No, I was like,
thank you for that.
That's golden. Like, because you hear that all the time. It's like, hey, tell us your biggest challenges right now. Like
100%. So what they do, listeners, is you go on a sales training program or you watch some LinkedIn training videos, and some of that stuff's real cool, like good basic fundamentals. Now, Jared, if I said to you, Jared, tell me what your biggest pain points are, you're gonna go, dude, like you're not human.
Yep.
You don't. You've got reactions theory to that one. Now, reactions theory is a big thing, right? Because we talked about the last time around COVID. What did our respective governments say to us? Don't panic buy. What's the first thing we do when someone tells us to do something, not do something? We react to it. It's called reactions theory. So we all go and panic buy, right? Because we don't like to be told what to do. Farmers, you can 10x that. They don't like to be told what to do. It's reactions theory 101. Our children don't like to be told. They like to have agency and autonomy and choice. And you do that by providing safety and conveying a sincere intent to serve by the quality of your questions.
I love it. Let's move into real life examples that we can give to our audiences. We'll start with the 1, 2, 5 truck operator, small business truck line. What are some real life examples that they can do right now to kind of start forming this, to build this list, and retain and hopefully increase their sales profits?
Absolutely. So the first thing we can do is we need to identify the specific customer we have. Everyone will have slightly different customers. And yes, it can get commoditized depending on grain schedule and prices, right? We talked about that last time.
Yeah.
The first thing we want to do is we want to get curious and ask permission to ask some questions. So if I'm having a conversation with you, Jared, and I'm that 135 truck driving operation, I said, Jared, really good catch up with you. I've got some questions I'd love to understand what you might be looking for most, what your current options are, and what you like and dislike most about your current truck driving operating partners. So could you tell me, currently with the guys that you use, what makes them work so well for you?
And I think that's a great question, because sometimes we ask what they don't like, but they should be asking what they really like about them.
Yeah,
like, if and again, there's some of these companies, shipping companies, they're hiring hundreds of truck drivers. So that they're going to be able to rattle off, pretty quick. Hey, this is what I love about this company. This is what I love. But start with the positive. What do you really enjoy? What are these companies doing really well to serve you?
100%. And sorry to jump in there, because the passion I want to really give this to your listeners is it's very important that you complement the funny thing is, we have the 4 horsemen of objections: price, time, higher authority, or another supplier. Like, they're going to have a trucking haulage person. What we want to do is we want to get curious about what makes them work so well. What do you like about them most? Now, that immediately differentiates you in your conversation, because the majority of people are going to go, do you want to know about us? And they'll go, oh yeah, no, they're pretty rubbish. Never on time. They're not good on the routes. They're not good on their operations. Really, really lazy on their cash flow and their invoicing and inventory, all those kind of things. Don't go there, because you're making them feel bad.
Yeah.
So what we do is we compliment rather than criticize. Then once we've had permission, the conversation continues like this. Cool. So tell me what you like about them. What makes them work so well for you? And then once they've told you, you then can say, that sounds great. It's really good that you've been taken care of. If there was one thing you could improve with the relationship you have with that organization, what would it be? Then you're getting into what their buying motives are, what they really, really want. This is stuff we train all the time. It should be no surprise that when you're selling and prospecting, canvassing for more business, because you want to make more money and you want to get more customers, or you want to sell more to the same customers at a higher price, you've got to ask really good questions. So the best way to do is, you are not going to make a buyer feel safe by you criticizing their choice of haulage operator currently. We ask, do you mind me asking, Jared, what makes them work so well for them? What makes them work so well for you? What do you like about them most? What do they do that keeps you happy? And they will tell you. And then their guard, their reactance for it is down, their protection mechanism, the just looking thanks, no, we're happy, thanks. They will then start to reveal what they do like and what they don't like. You never start with a criticism, you start with a compliment. And that is a really good way of getting psychological safety in that conversation.
So we got the first one there, is really getting in the door and creating more of a positive environment, talking about what they currently like. Again, using this, truck freight scenario, what haulers they like and why. What's the next step after that?
Right. Here's the thing. So we had a sequence. We've asked them, first of all, what they like.
Yep.
And what they do so well for them. And then we asked them if there's one improvement they could make, or one thing they would change the most, what would it be? We don't ask them several things. We just ask them one thing. It's a very focusing question. And when they give us this answer, you might be able to say, actually, this is something that we do. We have systems, we have inventory, and you've got an opportunity to follow that line of questioning. Or what you do say is, hey, look, it sounds like they're taking really good care of you. Would it be okay if we kept in contact, and we will be your plan B if your plan A ever lets you down? How does that sound?
I like it.
Now, so what it means is sales are never made. Marriages don't happen on the first date. Unless you are really lucky. Here's the thing, the buying pyramid, research shows, if you were to talk to 100 different prospects, only 3 of them are ready to buy now. Yet 37% are willing and looking and are interested in consuming content. And we've got some really good tools that can show buyer intent and online behavior, but we haven't got time to talk about that. There is about a 10x from that ready to buy pool, only 3%. So if you drove up 100 farmers' driveways, only 3 of them would say, hey, and here's the magic words, oh, your time is really good. When you hear that, you know you just got lucky, and you can make your own luck, right? Just by numbers. But what you do is you nurture that 37% who are sitting on the fence, thinking about their haulage, thinking about their trucking options. And if you continue to have a conversation with them, 80% of sales are made in the 8th to 12th interaction. So we need to automate that follow-up, and it can be as simple as getting them on an email. And I don't want to go down a rabbit warren around marketing automation because there's better people than me to talk about that. But it could just be a simple text-only email. Another thing your guys and girls can do is ask prospects for their advice. And say to them, generally, we want to understand how the market's being served, how we get better. I'd love to know what are the things that what I'd like to get your advice. Can I get your advice? And it could be a simple 10-minute call or a coffee or whatever else. Not everyone's going to say yes, but if you want to really flatter someone in a genuine way, ask them for their advice. Do not ask them for feedback. Everyone is feedback fatigued. You use your Avis, your Hertz, we have Air New Zealand down here. Like, how was your flight? How was your rental? How was your stay at the Hilton? I don't care. I haven't got time to fill in a survey.
Yeah.
But if you ask me for my advice and there's a human at the end of the phone or on a Zoom, I'm much more interested to know.
I want to go back just a little bit on that, talking about the sales. I want to hear that, and then almost like that's overwhelming, like 3% on the very first meeting. So,
yeah,
because again, you can name any, like you want to haul for this person or you want this trucker to haul for you. You can play both roles. Like your goal is to get that done on that first call. Yeah. But you're saying like that only 3% of the time happens. And it's typically going to be maybe that 8th, 10th. People are listening to this being like, no, I can't, like that. That's a lot more work right there. If I got to wait, if I got to wait till, if I got to wait till the 8th, 9th, 10th time before I do it. But I will say this though, I can reflect back and think of times where this is so true. Like, even when I was work as a shipper, you contact that trucker, hey, I'm wanting you to haul these loads. This is what it is. Truckers, but no, I'm busy. Whatever, I can't do that. Whatever, maybe week goes by, I send them another email, but usually it's that 3rd, 4th, 5th time. Yeah, maybe. Well, then, you get them in. So I think that's worth just kind of really bulleting. Don't think that you're going to get married on that first date. You're going to get that sale at first date. You're going to get that truck booked. You're going to get that load covered in the first date. That's brilliant. Make sure and kind of keep that in your mental capacity that, hey, you're not trying to marry these people on the very first date.
You mustn't. And it doesn't work well. I'm not speaking from personal experience, but the reality is every part of the sales process, and maybe we don't have time to unpack it, but we can share people resources where they can go. Every part of the sales process, you're just trying to create another conversation. And the thing for your listeners as well, sales are made in the conversation, not in the presentation, not in the RFP, not in the quote, not in the proposal, not in the tender, because you're expecting all that paper to do all the heavy lifting for you. The heavy lifting is done in the conversation. And the heavy lifting of all conversations are quality questions, just like the ones I've spoken about. Instead of asking you, Jared, about, and you're a shipper and I'm a haulage guy pitching to you and we're role playing the other way, is I could say, Jared, do you mind me asking, what's the biggest problem you're trying to solve right now? So what I'm doing, I'm not using pain points or what keeps you up at night or how do I win your business, which smacks of desperation. I've asked a very curious, very wide opening funnel question. It's like, what problem do you think you're trying to solve right now? Or, or we can be even braver. And this is one for, Billy Boy, brave pants on. You and I have agreed to a meeting. Jared, really good to catch up. I know you're a really, really busy dude. So loving getting some time and looking forward to this conversation. Do you mind me asking, the first thing is, why did you agree to meet with me? why do you think we can possibly help you? I'm getting you to sell yourself to me.
That's right.
By asking that question.
Yeah.
Now, this is powerful. This is psychology, guys.
Well, you're putting ownership in on my side.
Yeah, I'm pushing it back to you now, because the problem is traditional sales, and even those big guys that you're competing against, they aren't investing. They invest in the technical side of selling, not the emotional, psychological side of selling, which is what we're doing. So if you want that advantage as that smaller business that your listeners are, you need to be more human in the way that you sell. Do not ask them what their pain points are. Ask them what's going on in the business now. What's their plans for growth? How are things going? Where's the tension points? Where are the blocks? Where are the barriers? What are the experiences you're having at the moment? What's really top of mind for you right now? How do you think we can possibly help? You know, these we're having a conversation. You are not a resource unit with a dollar amount hanging above your head. You and I are having a conversation right now, right? You and I are jamming way better than we were jamming on the first session, because you trust me a bit more. We've had some conversation. So we're on a second iteration now. So the conversation is flowing. It's deeper. It's more natural. And it's not sales-like.
Yeah. Sinjin, I got 2 more questions and we're going to land this plane. And this is one I just kind of thought of it, but man, I want to hear your reply to this. You know, the psychology of sales, like it can be so mentally challenging at times. You know, you're working on a prospect, man, you've groomed them, you've met them, you've taken them out. I mean, you know, you get down to the finish line and they go with somebody else. I mean, it's a blow. Like, man, I've invested so much and now I lost this. And it's some salespeople, I know this happened, like, and you can get broken down from it in the moment. And it can really affect kind of how, you know, for maybe weeks on end of because now you got the stigma, like, I'm not good enough. These people didn't use me. They told me no. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with the service or product I'm solving? I'm just saying, like, it's real. Like, and I mean, a lot of sales guys today, they battle this. They're like, am I good enough? Do I have what it takes? What did I do wrong? And like, I'm nervous now. I'm nervous to get into another relationship, I guess I should say. Like, I'm nervous to start dating again. I don't want to get hurt. What?
You got burnt and bruised.
Yeah.
So our brains, I'm going to give you a really good answer. Best answer I can give you, Jared, is our brains are biologically wired to belong. We do not like rejection. The problem is we take rejection personally. We have to take rejection professionally. The way we do that is what Daniel Pink calls the buoyancy of belief. If you make your business the best business it can be, and you keep close to your customers, and you understand who your ideal customer is and their frustrations and their pains and their problems. For me, when I go and get my Toyota car serviced, they give me the shittiest courtesy car, or they don't drop me off. It's a pain. So I'm trying to make that all frictionless. So this is the thing that you've got to do to protect yourself. If you overinvest because you've only got 1 or 2 leads in your pipeline, you've only got 1 or 2 prospects in your pipeline, you only have yourself to blame. I'll be really brutal. You put yourself in that situation. What you need to do is you have to have more prospects. The reason why, if you had more prospects and more options, when you have less options, you give away your power. When you have more options, you hold power, because you are choosing them as much as they are choosing you. If there's one thing I'd say to listeners, you have to continually prospect. When I do time diaries on my business owners and my rural guys, they're big or small teams or medium teams, I look at how much time are they selling? How much time are they prospecting and canvassing and generating leads? And it can be appallingly low. How can you grow a business by 10 or 20% if you're only spending 10 or 20% of your time on sales or marketing or generating leads? So if you've overinvested, or you're needy, or you're desperate for the deal, you're going to get punished on price, or someone's going to pick them for a price because there's an absence of value. That buoyancy of belief is the thing that keeps you afloat. You have to believe in your product. You have to believe in its superiority. You have to know what makes it different. If you are charging a premium, I've been training a team right now. It's very obvious they have not been trained in the superiority of their product. And if they don't do that as a baseline, they are not going to sell it at a premium. Now, I'm a sales trainer, not a product trainer. I expect you to know your product inside out. And then we sell the superiority and the value proposition and the differentiation of that product, or create the differentiation. Maybe it's the customer experience. Maybe it's the onboarding. Maybe it's a particular sector or geography that you serve, or you've mapped out the whole customer journey, or you've got a post-purchase process. These are all things that really are important. Usually the reason it's multifaceted is you will have an ideal customer, and sometimes that person has left you because they're not your ideal customer and you do not understand them at a very graphical, granular detail. Specificity spits cash. So we have to be very, very specific about who we serve and why we serve them if we want to extract that premium. So I know that was a big answer to a pretty gnarly question, but it's the best chance of protecting yourself is go and get more bloody prospects. Fill your pipeline with more options. Do not let them become your only option, and you're going to feel a whole lot better.
Well, I'm going to use one of your quotes from last time. I mean, you said your list is your lifeline.
100%.
Like, remember that your list, and even when times are good, busy, you got business coming at you, that's not a time to take off the gas pedal. You got to keep investing that much more and prospecting sales.
You must attack a lead, not defend one. You must attack a lead, not defend one. You must not take your foot off the throat. If you're in a good position, just like a good sports team, an NFL, NBA team, when you are winning, you keep winning, and you put the foot down, and you keep building your list, and you keep going and talking to the Rotaries or the round tables or the conference organizers, or send out a simple email or get your Facebook page. And I know these guys do massive hours. I understand it. I do massive hours as well. I've got 3 kids, one really big business that I'm growing. I got a lot going on. I do big hours, but I get that email out, that text email out every single. Could be simple as a text, simple as an email. It doesn't need to be big and complicated doing podcasts and websites and all those things.
Well, that was my final question. I want to really talk about these real life practical examples because, again, some of these listeners may be saying, "Hey, I don't have the resources or time to put together some of this," but you really, I'm going to go. There's kind of two ways I want to go with this, but you want to set yourself as an expert. I remember you telling me that before. Like, you want to be the expert. People, they want to know that you know what you're doing, and and with that comes being generous as well with 100%. Giving things out. But I'm going to let you take it from there. But like, talk about like real life examples that even small businesses can do. Little owner operators, 5 trucks. Hey, they're the driver. They're the biller, dispatcher, mechanic, everything on the truck, but they know they still got to be doing stuff to sell and grow their business. How do they do that?
Awesome. The first thing, thank you for reminding me, Jared, because there's so much we covered in the first one. Generosity is your best strategy. There's a reason you do your podcast and you give out your resource and materials, and I'll give links to guys to ebooks and emails and podcasts and everything else, is we serve to sell, right? It's exactly the same principle regardless of business. Here's a really good little exercise your listeners could do right now. Get a piece of paper in front of you and you write down 2 columns. On the left, you write this, and then on the right, you write not this. And I've literally written down in my pad here as I'm talking to you. You can do this to your husband and wife, partners, easy. Team could do this in a meeting on a whiteboard in the room. You got this as one column on one side and not this on the other. What you want to do on this column is define everything that the traditional haulage or shipping industry does, and the frustrations. So they do this, and then what we do, your business is the right-hand column, which is not this. This is the things we don't do. So they do this, we do that. It's really simple to differentiate your business. You have to be everything the others aren't. You have to hit it where they ain't. So,
it's easy to think of that in your head, Sinjin, but like you said, put it on paper, because then you're drafting out. You can see that,
It's an action. It's tangible, and you can leave it up there. But you can do it with your team, or do it with your partner, or your wife, or your husband, and you go, right, these are the things that typify and define the traditional market, and this is what they do. We're going to do the reverse of that. For instance, when someone pays us with remittance advice, we're going to thank them for the payment. Yeah. When we onboard them, we're going to ask them their communication preference. Do they want a phone? Do they want an email? Do they want an SMS? Do they want a follow-up? And from a customer experience, as soon as we've done that first job for them, we're going to follow them up and phone them up, get their advice, and they want to know how it's gone. When I train farm machinery guys, the biggest meeting is not the sale of the tractor or the chaser bin or the header. It's the first call after and going, how's that machine working for you? I'd love to come see and check it's doing its job for you. That is the one that matters most. There's so many ways you can differentiate. It's a really simple exercise. This is what the market do. This is what we do. So they do this and we do not do that. So this, not that. Sorry, this column and a not this column. It's so easy because in life, it's really, if you don't know the answer to something, work out the things you don't want to do and don't want to be. And then your brain, it's a simple hack, will work out what you do want to do. That's the beauty of that very simple exercise on a sheet of paper.
I've shared this before. I've written my own eulogy.
Yeah.
The person that I want to, when I die, I want to be. But it's like, and I don't look at it that often, but probably once a month, I have it on my board. But I kind of read that and it's like, if that's who I want to be, I got to do this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the same premise. Like you're creating the person that you want to be or the business that you want to be by putting that on there.
Yeah, you are imprinting it on your subconscious by doing it consciously, because hopes and dreams just live in the air and the atmosphere unless it's written down. Actually, writing something down is an action, and that actually does imprint. And then you recall and revisit it all the time. So this, not this, or whether writing you're visioneering or imagine casting or whatever you want to call it, you're dedicating. It's very simple. If you want to be different in a business, be everything the other guys aren't.
So real life practical examples in a couple of these, and I want to give the why, but I want to talk specifically some of these things that business owners can do today. But you want to be sending these texts out or these emails, these communication methods, because you want to get imprinted in the brain. You want to be top of mind, and you want that over and over. And again, that prospect may not resonate the first time. They may delete it, but they're going to see it and they're going to notice that. But let's talk about that. Like with technology today, a lot of that, it's pretty inexpensive, to be honest with you. I mean, you can create email campaigns. And again, I'm not an expert on that. But there's some really, free resources where you can send, text messages, emails, newsletters, anything of that. What would you say, Sinjin, I'm kind of just off the top of your head, like for these small one truck operations, what are ways that they can do to really kind of start prospecting and building that lifeline?
Hundred. So we talked about the list being your lifeline, right? Because in COVID, it was the one thing we had to talk. And when we say list, we mean a list of prospects, not necessarily customers. A customer list is a database. And the way I define a list is a prospect list of people that you are nurturing. Because remember, no one gets married on the first date. The sale happens in the 8th to 12th interaction. Why do we think sales cycles are taking longer, Jared? Just a quick question, and I'll give you the answer if you haven't got it. Why are sales cycles taking longer? Why is it taking longer to convert people?
Trust.
Yeah, because there's so many crappy salespeople out there, and they're making our job a lot harder. So we had to differentiate and get superior and get better. So what we do is we nurture, we serve before we sell, and we do not leave a communications vacuum. Everyone knows the law of physics from school. If you leave a vacuum, others fill it. I bet some of your listeners have said, shit, I forgot to follow up with that guy. And they bloody went with that other firm. And because I forgot to follow up. And I then followed them up in 9 months' time because I finally cleared my system, because you didn't have one. You didn't have a follow-up form or a system of automation that would have handled this for you. I phone them up and they go, oh, Sinjin, really glad. But actually, we went with the other guys because, we didn't hear from you for 6 months. And we moved really quickly, and you just kick yourself and you gut it. So never leave a communications vacuum, because others will fill it with their sales conversation, and they will nurture. And it is survival of the fittest. It is Darwinism, but you're right. The inexpensive tool is there. The best thing you can do is email your clients every week with a text-only email with tips and tricks and ideas on fuel efficiency or savings. You would know a lot of that content plan. You could offer that. I'm sure if you don't already, generosity is your best strategy, because then they're going to think of, Jared, that is a good bugger who's got me. He's got my back. He's serving my needs, not serving his own. Much more likely to pick up the phone. You can look at them. They can be hyper responders. That's just a really, complicated term for they're consuming my content. You can look at their online behavior. A text is so immediate, because we look at these phones about 280 times a day, and we can see when they've read them. The text isn't selling, it's serving. We're just trying to create a conversation. So we just send out these little nuggets that serve them, be abundant, be generous, just like you and I are here. And then people go, these guys are serving me. They're not selling me. I don't like to be sold to. I love to be served. So I'm more likely to buy. And also that content has to be, sorry, Jet, that content has to be about helping them make the most accurate and informed decision, because we've got huge cynicism with people that sell to us. So if we can help them make the best and most accurate informed decision, you can even tell them that. Please use those words. There are psychological reasons why I'm saying it. Jared, wherever you end up with this, whether you go with us or not as your haulage guy, I want you to make the most accurate and informed decision. I have just signaled massive buyer safety with those words.
We've often got criticized at BulkLoads by our users. They've told us that we give away too much free information and content. And I often laugh at that, but I tell, and even some of our employees have challenged me on that, and they've said, like, we give a lot of free stuff away. Like, you could be and people have told us you can be charged and making money on this. And my response every time, Sinjin, is like, I'd rather hear that than the opposite.
100%. Your intent. So as everyone gets, what's going to happen? You're going to see this massive divide. It's already happening because you've got Amazon and algorithms and automation and machine learning and all the hype around ChatGPT. If you're a professional copywriter, you might be cowering a bit because you're wondering if your job's safe. You are measured on your intent, particularly in rural and agriculture. You and I know this, eh? If you are not a good human being with good character and good intent, you give yourself away by the questions that you ask, your intent. You are signaling your intent by the quality of your questions and your questioning line, your line of questioning. And we have got a very big bullshit radar. Farmers, agricultural people, very, very wise, very, very oversold too, because they represent a lot of money, even though they might not look like it. They are you and I 10 times over, and we wouldn't even know. But what it is your intent is everything, and people pick up on your intent and your why. So your purpose and all those good things that you do. What they say about you says more about them. So, Seth Godin, like a great marketer, the world's most read blog in the world, one of your guys, he says, create like an artist. And he said, if you're worried about giving your stuff away, your IP away, you ain't got enough stuff. An artist always creates. So if you're worried about scarcity and, look, if I give away all my stuff, I've got nothing there to go. You've got nothing to give. So I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's good. Well, Sinjin, this has been awesome. Even better than our last recording. I think, man, we just nailed it with real life practical examples. We're going to have you on again. This has been phenomenal. I'm sure we're going to get good feedback from our listeners as well. But you, speaking of, have a free resource as well for our listeners, and we're going to drop this into the episode notes, but can you talk about that?
Yeah, sure. I've written a book specifically on how to master rural sales. So sorry, it's got the sales word in it. And basically the subhead is the secrets and psychology every rural rep needs to know. It's a very small booklet. You can read it in about an hour and a half, and it's free for your listeners. I love giving this stuff away because I need to prove my worth. I need to earn my right.
Yeah.
And you can go to it. And the URL, very specific, which you'll put in the show notes, is ruralsalessuccess.com. And in there, download the book. If you want to jump on my email, I weekly email religiously, 9:53 a.m. every Tuesday, NZT, New Zealand time, which will come at a weird time in your inboxes up in the States, bro. But I do not let people down. When I say I'm going to do something and I serve them, I will serve them. So if you want to be on that list, just jump in there, grab the ebook. If you want to listen to my podcast, I want Jared on my show. There's a ton of resources. The reason why I do this, Jared, the reason I set the business up, I don't want to see rural business owners struggle. They should not suffer in silence. There is a ton of resources out there. I'm one of many providers. I will fit for some people. I won't for others. Some of the psychs a little bit of overwhelming or complicated, but the ebook just distills it down in really practical, easy to understand ways. I'm a farmer boy. I understand how it rolls, and I've just tried to make it really, really simple. There's lots of principles in there, lots of questions, lots of scripts, lots of cheat sheets, lots of templates you can use. And if you want to then reach out more, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're on LinkedIn and you're dropping my my LinkedIn profile, and I'd be happy to serve and ask people if people got questions. I can usually get back to them pretty quick.
Yep. And again, all of this we're going to drop right in the episode notes. So if you're listening right now to the podcast, just drop down. You'll see the ebook. You'll get all the contact information, the LinkedIn profile for Sinjin as well. And Sinjin, man, this is awesome. Thanks again for coming on.
So good, Jared. And it's really good to jam with you. I love your questions. I love your curiosity. And I love your service intent to your listeners as well, much like me. And it's always a pleasure to chat to guys like you.
Tyler, there was a lot to unpack here, but a couple that really stood out to me was talking about, the problem with selling is selling.
Yeah.
It's really not about selling, but it's about giving and serving people, and then in return getting those rewards from that.
Yeah, I fully agree with that, and that's what we teach our guys too, and everyone in here understands that concept. We're not here to sell a service,
No.
but we're here to serve our members. And in return, it can benefit both ways, but really the purpose is to help you guys and to serve you.
He mentioned a lot in the show about your pipeline, keeping your pipeline full. And I think all of us can be guilty of that. But even as a driver out there, and we're going to talk a little bit about current market conditions, because we do know that it is starting to get choppy. But I think this is so crucial why Sinjin was talking about that. Man, you have to keep your pipeline full. You got to be thinking about the next 6-8 months and how you're going to get to that. So even when you're busy, and we know a lot of carriers over the past couple of years have been busy, I mean, you haven't really had to go out and look for extra work. But even in those moments, you need to be looking 6 to 8, 12 months out of, hey, when the market turns, how do I keep that pipeline full? Those customers that I do reoccurring, if those drop off, how do I fill in to keep my operation moving?
Yeah. And that's good that you bring that up. Just taking a look at the forum, you can see, people are starting to look hard, and the market is getting tight. And we definitely understand that in our side of things. And, we do have a couple tools that can maybe help with that issue.
Yeah. So we've been in a cycle, and it's been really good for the past couple of years. Freight market's been up in all sectors, and that's put a lot of demand on drivers. So therefore, rates have been up. We started seeing truck tonnage last fall come down, and we just knew that it was going to be a trickle effect to where we would see it play into the bulk freight market. And I think we're getting there. So I'm not doom and gloom on this. I mean, we weathered this. I've seen, in my 20 years now in the industry, I've seen probably 4 to 5 of these cycles. So I think we're starting to kind of see that cycle, and it's starting to get a little choppy. So how do you prepare as a small business, a driver, to weather this storm?
Yeah.
I think, a couple of things we've seen, and you brought up the forum. And again, we actually, as rough as some of that is and painful, we like to see that. And believe it or not, we read every forum post on there, and we take all those in consideration, because if there's problems on there, like, there's got to be solutions to those problems, and we're constantly figuring out ways to work through that. But I wanted to bring up a couple of things. A lot of people talk about rates not getting posted. One solution we have devised over the past couple of years is talking about bulk TMS and our dispatching a private load board. But that's a way where you can get a part of that, and actually companies will send you loads and offers directly to you with full information. It's exact origin, destination, the exact product, and the rate. And it alleviates, having to go on there on the load board and see that. Now, we do welcome all load board postings, but it's more of an invited network. So the shipper knows who exactly you are. They can send you private loads, and they don't have to go through all the additional vetting that they would on the regular load board.
Yeah. Whenever a load gets sent through bulk TMS there, the carrier, you can actually accept it right on the app with one touch. You can accept that load, or you can message them right in the app and negotiate the rate, or ask any questions about that load. So it's really it's a cool thing. And if your shipper or broker is not sending you loads that way, just ask them to.
Yep.
And then they can reach out to us and we'll show them exactly how to do it.
Yep. And or the simplest is just call in here and we'll direct you to Caleb and Austin on our team, and Andrew as well. And they can show you kind of how to use this and refer. But it's kind of the next wave that we see with technology to help you get the exact information that you're wanting without having to do extra steps, without having to make the phone calls, emails, texts, and going back and forth. But yeah, check out Bulk Team S, get a hold of us, and we'll let you know kind of how to proceed there. So we're super excited about that. But again, I want to let all of our audience know, we do know that the market is getting tighter, that we're going to see some challenging times, but man, we're going to weather the storms like we do always, and we're going to be better for that. So awesome. Well, man, I hope you enjoyed this podcast with Sinjin on selling. If you know others that can benefit from this, man, we would love the referral. You can click share from any medium that you listen to this to and share with those out there. This is a great show. I mean, for any business, not just trucking or agriculture, but anybody that's out there selling. I think what Sinjin really pointed on, man, it was just, I mean, complete gold to learn and live by. I learned so much. And again, I've been at this for 20 something years and I got a lot of good takeaways from that. So, but cool. Well, last but not least, hey, just to kind of keep it up on the roadmap, we will be at Matt's. We're going to keep promoting that because we want to see you there. It's one of the best places where we can see so many people at one spot and put a face with a name and serve you like you have served us in this industry. So Tyler, what are the dates on that? The dates are March 29th through April 1st, and it's going to be booth 65120 in the West Wing. I'm excited. We got a big booth this year. We're taking the podcast with us. So if you do want to be a guest on our show, we'd love to have you. If you think that you can bring value to our audience, or even if you just want to get on and talk about some of the issues in the industry, for 5, 10, 15 minutes, let us know and we'll get that scheduled. And we got a couple surprise giveaways. One might involve a semi truck, right? Yep. Yeah. And something that, if you weren't at the BulkLoads conference, I mean, these guys went nuts over it. It's really cool. So yeah, we have some really cool giveaways that they're going to be there. So definitely check that out. So cool. Well, thank you very much for listening, and God bless.